Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first and last word poetry series. And tonight we have a special group of poets. They are the Every Other Thursday poets, and they'll be reading from their new anthology, The Heart Off Guard. And we'll start out with Susan Donnelly. Susan Donnelly founded Every Other Thursday in 1980. Her newest poetry collection is the Maureen Papers and Other Poems. The author of Capture the Flag, Transit, Eve Names the Animals, and six chapbooks. She has been published in the New Yorker, Poetry, Agni, The Sun, Poetry Ireland Review, and in many other journals, anthologies, textbooks, and online. Susan offers poetry classes and individual consultations from her home in Arlington, Massachusetts. And I give you Susan.
Hello, and thank you very much, Gloria, for all your work setting up this series, which is great to be in, and it's wonderful to see everybody here. Um, this is the book that we'll be reading from. I think we're all going to probably read from poems from it, and then several other poems in the course of our 10-minute or so presentations. As the founder of Every Other Thursday, and I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to sound too braggy, but I did start it long ago, and we've had many a long experience together and beloved people that we some have gone because they died and so forth, but we have become very close and we've just welcomed a new member to our group. And but John Hildebeitel, who died in 2023, was really probably one of the absolute first charter members of Every Other Thursday. And when he died, he left us a little money, which because we had kept up with him and over the years, he left us a little money, which allowed us to plan to do an anthology. So before I read my own poems here, I want to read the poem we began the anthology with as a little forward, which is one of John's poems. Now, John was a very chatty, very gregarious man, also quite a private, rather shy person, I think. His father, on the other hand, was apparently a very successful salesman. And John often talked about how chatty he was, the father. I never met his father, but this is a poem he wrote about. It's an elegy, really, which you come to realize when you hear the poem, called Working the Crowd, and it imagines his father. So I'll just go ahead with it. And it's written in John's sort of matter of fact way. Working the crowd. A room too big, too blank for its own good. Chandeliers, but the light is poor, as though to prevent disappointing close views of what will turn out to be Salisbury steak. Podium shoved into a corner to make room. A crowd, talking politely. At the door, at a narrow, cloth-covered table, somebody with a typed list checking the stream of arrivals. He must be recent. He's still near the door. Sport jacket, good cloth, professionally tailored, but it doesn't seem to hang like a familiar garment. He moves his shoulders, trying to get it to settle. But nevertheless, he smiles, a handshake for everyone, not just the ones he recognizes. Even strangers find themselves telling the whole story within half an hour. Dante on an expense account, you could say. He limps. He walks a little tentatively, as if the slightest jostle might tumble him flat, as if that would still matter. They say I have the same way of never quite managing not to have something to say. Father and son, after all, simple metaphysics. I like that poem a lot. And it has a dreamlike quality, and a couple of the poems I'm reading tonight have are set as dreams. Actually, I'm going to read one here. It's called Gender, and this sort of goes back to elementary school. Um, Gender. I wake from a dream of yellow cotton, pattern fixed to it with common pins, and lie for a while thinking of sixth grade sewing class with Mrs. What was her name? Whose teeth gritted voice repeated, "Haste makes waste," as we struggled to do what the girls were supposed to, chain stitch our initials on a work bag. Add rickrack to the crooked apron it took us all year to finish, while down the hall, the boys in manual training loudly made wood into bookends. This next poem is also gendery kind of too. It refers to a lunch that I often have with a friend of mine, Sarah Stevens. It's called Noon. My friend and I like to do lunch, it seems, in the middle of streets, in this case, the avenue, full of buses, backups, crossings, and flashing lights, squeezed onto a sidewalk with students who never look up from their phones, and older folks shuffling past alone. We lean across the wooden table, as we each once did over the heads of toddlers, shouting our confessions and catty asides, pondering, louder please, each subtlety in our delicate lives. I'm going to read some poems that focus a lot on my friend David Barry and also are having to do with newspapers, what we read in the papers these days or other days. This poem is actually called Why He Laughs. I'm sure he won't mind my analyzing or sketching why he laughs. From the next room, I hear his chuckle, large, solitary, sounding contented almost. And I've learned not to ask, since it may not be anything funny at all. Too often, it's a story in the news so outrageous or hurtful that it calls out his gallows humor. Or it could be one of our domestic absurdities with a saving laugh, this time on him. Maybe he's picked up the remote to telephone or found his lost pair of scissors right there beside her. Another sketch of the same individual who always has been extremely attached to reading the papers, very honorably, I think, as I kind of refer here in the poem. This one is called The Guardian. Like the sound of rain through leaves at a summer window, the rustle of newspaper as you start to fall asleep in your chair, drooping forward, the pages crumbling into a rattle that startles you awake to the watch you must keep on the world's dispatches. Though the words turn back into water, and the window again fills up with rain. I think that sums my friend David up. The watch you must keep on the world's dispatches. Very honorable profession. A newspaper, careful newspaper reader. This latest poem, as we all, I think, are aware, as the news becomes worse and worse. This latest poem is a sonnet I wrote to my Zoom home class. It's called I Give Poetry Writing Assignments to My Class in January 2025. And this is for Carol, Christina, Hannah, Melanie, and Nellie. A couple of people here tonight. First, you are to write what keeps you warm, despite the headlines on these chilling days in which the whole republic's being razed and every safety vilified as harm. I've often found some comfort in a form, I note, so try the sonnet's ways. Its sturdy certainty through any maze might give directions to what's left of home. I watch you set out with your usual zeal, searching your hearts, following each rule, then realize how you warm me when I teach, that a sonnet is itself a kind of school, where rhyme and meter bring us what we feel, when love in prose is sometimes hard to speak. This next poem has an epigraph that I read in the Washington Post in mid-February, Washington Post of this year, spoken by an unnamed White House representative. They get the one starving kid in Sudan that isn't going to have a USAID bottle, and they make everything Doge has done about the starving kid. It's called One Starving Kid in Sudan. I can't write more. Who am I to write more or at all about one starving kid in Sudan? I'd stop were it not for the curse I'd place on the head of that White House official, that his eyes be unshut, awake or asleep, so he's forced to face one starving kid in Sudan and be haunted forevermore. I'm going to end with a couple of mourning poems. This one is it speaks of myself. I'm writing in the third person, but it's speaking about myself. And I quote in it the famous poem by Basho, the haiku. Though I'm in Kyoto, when the cuckoo sings, I long for Kyoto. I switched the lines a little bit in the course of the poem. A morning person. It must be because she is one, most awake at the start of day, that so often now over coffee, she will set the cup down to wipe her eyes, at a line in a memoir maybe, or a poem read for the 100th time, when the cuckoo sings, I long for Kyoto. A photo may cause it, of a child whom everyone will remember forever, or a survivor somewhere, standing on rubble. Yet breakfast tears are not always sadness. Often the words she reads are so full of joy, she looks up from the book to think beyond them. Past the outside scene, where a squirrel cavorts, where a neighbor has just stepped onto a porch. Though I'm in Kyoto. I'm going to end with a poem about my brother, my late brother, Timmy, who died about a year and a half ago. And this is also a morning poem. Reveille, like it's morning in two senses. Reveille. Our dad, in his navy whites, comes in a dream to visit my brother Tim, to go with him to the wedding of a cousin who's also died. Waking to the silent, charged room, Tim lies there for a moment, then gets up, dresses, begins to sort out as best he can. Yesterday's visit to the specialist, whose new treatment isn't working, whose statistics both distract and dismay. To consider whether his damaged heart can withstand going back to those first infusions. To think of his wife, who so needs him. Then smile at the way his father looks so dapper and strong. To take up once more the life that just might turn out to be long. To begin the new day. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And our next reader is Polly Brown. Oops, excuse me, Ellen Steinbaum. Sorry about that. Ellen is the author of 4 poetry collections, including the newly released Leavings, as well as a one-person play. She has been nominated twice for the Pushcart Prize and appeared in several anthologies, including Garrison Keller's Good Poems, American Places, and The Widow's Handbook. An award-winning journalist and former Boston Globe columnist, she writes a blog, Reading, Writing, and the Occasional Recipe, which can be found at her website, ellensteinbaum.com. And I give you Ellen.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, all of you, for being here. And it's a pleasure. And thank you to Harris at a remove. I'm delighted to be part of this group and part of this anthology, which we are so delighted about. It's called The Heart Off Guard, and I wanted to pick up where Susan left off and read to you the line from which the title comes. It is from Seamus Heaney's poem, one of Seamus Heaney's poems, and the lines go, "You are neither here nor there, a hurry through which known and strange things pass and catch the heart off guard and blow it open." So my first poem in here is called In Anne's Studio, and it's about a visual artist I met at a artist retreat, and she created an environment for herself in which to work, and it was quite beautiful and gave her a lot of inspiration and inspired me to write this. Before even the first line is drawn is order. Each twig breathes, and each seed pod lies calm in its deliberate space. Spare, but like those Dutch still lifes with ripe fruit, fly, fat rabbit still furred with its quickness, and light shining down just so on polished grapes, draped cloth. This too, what the world is made of, leaves, paper shreds, stones, a meditation of things, each object in its honored place, showing what is holy in this life, is noticing. Noticing is something I think about a lot in writing poems. This is called The Secret Life of Wallops. They seem to want to lose themselves, get away, give us the slip, like energetic hounds always straining at the leash. Smooth with our constant, tiring need, they wait for the chance to slide from pockets, hide in sofa cushions. Then the stunning reappearance as they drop into the lives of our years later selves with expired coupons, faded snapshots, library cards worn to velvet at the edge, perhaps some cash. It happens all the time, it seems. They hide behind ductwork in Eau Claire, throw themselves into Boston Harbor, get wedged into a tree trunk in Central Park. One fell from a ceiling panel of the childhood home of a childhood friend of a man who became mayor of Tulsa. And then, adventures done, they return in the hands of strangers, proud to bring us the surprise and eager for our stories. We shake our heads, marvel at these things we carried with us, familiar as our hands, those things we thought were ours. This is a poem that is very old, and you'll understand how old it is when you hear the title, which it has a title in it that no longer exists, but I'm guessing that a lot of old-time Bostonians are going to get it. Shopping at Bread and Circus after hearing a poet read poems about her trip into the low-impact wilderness. We glide down aisles, smiles beatific, thoughts pure, our Saabs and Volvos parked outside, bumper stickered, free to bet. It is beautiful here, what waits for us like Christmas morning, polished food in perfect pyramids, organic and serene, milk in glass bottles from your grandmother's childhood, fish that swam smiling into the nets, or maybe directly into the cases to plant themselves on ice. Animals that ranged free and muscular before we got hungry. We leave only money. We take only food, homeopathic remedies, and aromatherapy sheep. Shelf life is short here. Infant eggplants, artichokes, zucchini, reaching their destinies fast. Baby spinach ripped from its mother earth, still soft and small, like the sweetly sticky toddlers in our shopping carts. It is convenient here, effortless to hunt and gather, signs grammatical, and even the radicchio and mesclun spelled correctly. Pale restrooms with changing tables. We leave our shit where we can, secure in knowing the fruit and coffee pickers live in cozy bungalows and send their picker children to progressive schools. Maybe we should have shortened the lives of the miserable Penfields instead of the gambling ones roaming bright meadows with the chicken parts and lamb chops in Bambi-esque nirvana. But it is beautiful here in the blonde wood aisles, here in the glow of unbleached cotton. It is beautiful here. We are one with the world. This is directly from our poetry group. This is for two people who are not with us here tonight, and in reaction to poems they read. Tonight around the table, two poems about the dying cat made me sad not to have a cat, even as they made me glad not to have one more loved thing to say goodbye to. And this was written for my friend Susan Donnelly. My friend is shopping for a dress with sleeves, she says, not happily. I understand. The quest may not end in success. It's hard to find that sweet forgiveness for shortcomings of the flesh. Where are the graceful dome and gentle cap and flirty flutter? Long sleeves are now inked in blue, while our blue lines, by contrast, are just what we'd hide away. Best draw a tender veil over raveled skin. Let limb experienced in the daily sacraments repose in privacy. This flesh is decorous, no casual glimpse without admission paid. Novels are written here, worldly as pears in varnished still life, gone just past ripe and browning at the edge. If invited, look at it in awe, gasp in wonder as if at giant redwoods whose circles count out Tang, Ming, Columbus, rockets to the moon. We too have stood fast through fickle years, and we have nothing up our sleeves but this slight human covering, no less, we're told, than stardust. And I'm going to finish with a poem that, again, was written with Susan Donnelly in mind, not necessarily for her, but because I was going to visit her one day and passing a little market. And I said, Susan, anything you need me to pick up for you? And she said, yes, I'd like some 1% milk. So 1% milk. If this is the privileged milk, the you can never be too thin or too rich milk, then what percentage is the milk of human kindness, or mother's milk here in the land of milk and honey, here where privilege is white as milk and where we shouldn't cry if it's spilt? Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And our next reader is Polly Brown. Recently resettled a family farm in Maine where she raises pomes and a few green beans. Pebble Leaf Feather Knife from Cherry Grove Collections appeared in 2019. Recent poems have appeared in Appalachia, Hole in the Head Review, Poetry East, and Quartet Journal. And a new book, Stitching, will be released by every other Thursday this year. And I give you Polly.
Oh, thank you to you, Gloria, to everybody who's here, including friends and old friends, and someone who will find herself in one of these poems. This is called Doorways. He heard his name called in alarm by one of his men in a house they were checking. And when my father stepped through that doorway, a German soldier filled the hall. At once he struck that stranger's body, struggled to free his bayonet, failed, then fired as trained. He had hardly begun to carry that damage, heavier than any shrapnel sealed in his leg, when I was born 3 years later. Through a childhood I owed to that death. My father, there but not there, leaned on the wall in the dark end of our hallway, waiting for something to pass. Then he smiled and opened again the closet for the scotch. So before other people were here, Gloria and I were talking about the Joyner Center at UMass Boston, which various, I see Holly Gurin nodding her head. Holly and I shared a couple of workshops there. That poem owes a great deal. One of those poems you need to write and can't write. Decades go by, you can't write it. It owes a great deal to young veterans in those writing workshops. They understood. The next poem I refer to sound, and it's capitalized because it's Long Island Sound. It's called Darkness in Them. The way I cast that old sorrow into the sound, into blue-gray, moving, always recasting water. I have sent my troubles here into the meadow. What will happen? Can I do right by? Have I forgotten? Each worry shaped in the form of a crow sent to roost in the pine. There they blur into shadow, spread. How the maples and blackberries came to have darkness in them. Out of that crow feather violet blue, that rusty deep green shade, bloom, wild bloom, white roses like crests of waves, and morning, this morning. The next one is called Bill's Scraping Stone. And Jean, who is mentioned in this poem, is here. Just wonderful. Bill's Scraping Stone. Somebody used this stone with its indent perfect for a thumb, its edge that scraped hair from a hide, or kernels off a cob, or flesh from a bone. Close up, it still bears a red, sour smell. For years, Bill kept it by the side of the bed he died in. Then Jean, giving shirts, shells, books to old friends, handed me this rough, dark blade. I lift it, his toughness and hers, to cut away bitter, keep instead his mountain voice speaking as God or a crocodile, Jack in the forest, sequoia among ashes and stars. This one's called Near the Connecticut. 4 of us traveling in one canoe, 2 small enough to fit between the paddlers. Down the Connecticut, New England's watery spine. We sat on a ledge in sunshine. Then, needing to pee, I climbed to a small wood. Sun-dappled shade, blue chinks of sky, nameless sparrows dipping in, weaving through. No remembered detail explains why in that moment I woke to our life in paradise, which means it could happen almost anywhere again. One last poem. With lilies and ghosts. Would I have seen another summer, how the lemon lilies had spent almost all their buds on July. They were down to only 3 by the 1st of August, the day I helped bury my youngest aunt, my father's favorite, the one most liable to burst into song for any reason or none. We gathered to recall her, impossibly without singing, in the time of the virus, known to be spread by any ardent breath. After her pastor had tried to convince the one true heathen he could see me, and after he'd promised life eternal with every saved soul gone before, to hearten any faithful who wavered in the heavy wind of grief. I tossed my cousin a kiss and then drove home to wander in the grass below the hill where all my dead appear to have taken a vote and chosen this heaven, even the ones whose lives never brought them here. Once more, I hear them come singing down the pond, my father and my mother in the harmony of my childhood, the rest all glad to join. I stand by the open throats of the last lemon lilies of the year, blooming on the 1st of August to welcome Blanchie. And I sing along. Thank you.
And our next reader is Stephen Ratiner. He is a poet, essayist, editor, and educator. He is the Poet Laureate Emeritus for Arlington and was recently elected as president of the New England Poetry Club. It is one of the oldest literary associations in America. His new poetry collection, Grief's Apostrophe, has just been issued by Beltway Editions. His laureate project, the weekly Red Letter Poems, is about to begin its 6th year and presents a diverse range of poets, from up-and-coming talents to some of the most important voices from America and abroad. And you can check out his website at steve.arlingtonlaureate@gmail.com. And I give you Stephen.
Thank you. Um, I wanted to say something really quick about the Every Other Thursday group. I'm the newest member. I've only been in the group, I think, 6 or 7 years. Um, it's an astonishingly supportive group, but they're really careful, clear-eyed readers. And that's what we want, isn't it? For the ones of us who make poems, we want somebody who'll read us as carefully as possible and give us their honest take. So I think it helps our poems to grow tremendously. And then I had an odd observation. I was looking today. So here's the book. See if I get this right here. Here's the anthology. And then here's my book that just came out. And what I realized is this is a photograph of a real person that an artist has made mythic, ghost-like, by making it abstract. And this is from the Bernini sculpture. So this is mythic and not real. And yet this artist was trying to make it so real and tangible that we believed. And I thought this is the two sides of art making, that we try to take our world and enlarge it, and then take the imagined world and make it concrete. So I'm going to read the poems from the anthology and plus one new one because there's somebody in the group who's seen me read from this book before. And I decided she should have something new to hear. But I'll read you the first poem in the book called Typos. The book explores grief in its many forms, and then the way we use art and language to try to perform some sort of a healing. So this one is really about language. It's called Typos. Word instead of wood, but sodden it smoked when it burned. I wrote God for good, who was once in my childhood years crowned with the nimbus of that capital G, but now tends to be a placeholder for nightmare, tears. Seeking solace in the pastoral, but grove came out as grave, and the lymph nodes, irradiated, naked as nymphs, danced in a circle, brandishing shovels, while nightjars in downed pine chanted Yiskadalva, Yiskadash, Shemay Raboah, that dreadful trill. And all I could do was stand there, heart stung, composing sorrow inside my head. Glossolalia of the keyboard. My fingers say what I cannot, never meant to. I'm marred by, married to this compulsive language and cannot shut it, shout it out, even in this house of silence. Live instead of love. Because that's what's left for me without your yes, or did I mean eyes, to bless my brokenness. Hello, hell. These inked lines sinking into white cotton bond, indelible. Here's a very new poem that's not in the book, but certainly could have been had it arrived earlier. It's called Radium, and the title is italicized, so you'll realize that's the word that the first stanza is referring to. It's written in 4 little stanzas. I'll give you a nice pause between them. They have asterisks between each section. Radium. To an 8-year-old, the word was augury, enchantment, God encased in lead, his light channeled through a tiny eyelet to spear my father with its radiant thread. Doctors encased his torso in plaster, marked their target with a black felt pen. That Fra Angelico in the Cortona Museum, the gowned angels half bow, guiding the golden beam of Annunciation. Be not afraid. And Mary's own gold leaf reply, inverted, so God, beyond the frame, might easily read it. Ecce ancilla Domini. Unannounced, Shadow had arrived at her doorstep, a member of the family. Cancer turned my father's spine to a pillar of salt. Was that what the divinity had in mind? Never again would he, nor I, Not we, not ever, not anything I dreamed. Pain made my father's eyes beautiful, terrible, a foreign country. But still, I believed his heart unseen would prove humble, almost motherly, responding to death's beckoning, behold, the handmaid of the Lord. A month later, my father's body, alone in the abyss of his hospital bed, gave birth to a burgeoning emptiness, mine as well as his own. And a poem for my mother, visiting her in the hospital for what I feared at the time was going to be a very last time. And then flying home, by the time I reached Boston, I'd found out she'd rallied and had another year or two with us. But I remember this moment as the crucial point. It's called For Now. Near the end, she stopped eating altogether. One evening, when I brought chicken soup shoaled with wild rice, a quick shake of the head, whispering, "What for?" And yet, in sleep, her mouth moved constantly, making a meal of departure. Watching her, I wondered, was the opposite of hunger grief, grace, love, or need? What feeds on our silence? Not that it would have made a difference, but I wish I'd proposed we take turns with the spoon. A mouthful, a mouthful, countering what for with for now. So I'll lift the mood a little bit here. This is a much remembered poem. My mom is in this poem, but it's being remembered from Stephen's childhood. It's called Kigo. Kigo is the Japanese word in haiku. That's the seasonal word. They put a certain word in to let you know that if it says moon, it means autumn. If it says cherry blossoms, it means spring. So see, Kigo is a hint. And then later on in the poem, it mentions kozo, which is a rich type of Japanese rice paper. Kigo. Crow, searching for a branch in an autumn poem, finds this winter memory instead. Mist, escaped from some spring verse, drifts across my snowed-in garden. Rice paper unscrolling, and the smell of fresh ground ink. I make moon, and the hooked stroke fishes up your half-forgotten face. I must have been 8, couldn't sleep. Even late, the derision of crows from our neighbor's pine, a child's portent. I called, and you came to me, sitting for a moment on the edge of my bed, wicking away my fears when you could do nothing about your own. Your gauzy nightgown, like the moon's. The way you both look down. A pity, time waters memory's ink. Words bleed through the kozo. Still, perhaps a new poem will come from this. Tears, the kigo. Emptiness, the season. And I'll end with 2 poems that intentionally to lift the mood, because as the book moves on, we make better and better use of our memories, of artworks, of language to try to find a path forward. So this, I hope, is a kind of a benediction. It was for me when I wrote it, and I hope it is for you too. It's called Escapement, and when I read this, if you don't know the word, probably you're picturing the word escape inside of it, but that's not the meaning of it. Escapement is a little mechanism, especially like in machines or old watches. It's the little thing that rocks back and forth that lets the gear turn only one notch at a time. Without the escapement, no control. Escapement. Barefoot at the screen door, I watched. My wife, my son, the blue car driving off, his arm thrust through the far window, a single wing beating. And then my own small tick-tock of a wave in response. Bye-bye. And suddenly it was clear. This is my life. The maple green scumbled through wire mesh. The June sky stirring. The sound of car wheels hard on a corner, a horn, and then no sound at all. My life. A quiet jubilance. Even in its retreat, I could not keep my eyes from it. And somewhere, steel teeth on the escapement. A notch and no more. Another incremental breath and no less. And one of the very last poems in the book is called Sláinte. It's for Seamus Heaney. Sláinte, you probably know, is the Irish health. It's the greeting when you raise a glass. So I will raise a metaphorical or a virtual glass to you all now. Sláinte for Seamus Heaney. 3 months dead, and your poem appears in the glossy mag. Below the byline, your years pried apart with a paltry black hyphen. In your honor, I crack a cold one. Ragged moonlit clouds frothing atop a pint of midnight. And toast to all our fermented spirits, lush on the summer tongue, our sullen eloquence, the cold glass weeping inside the palm. Because, and you'd be the first to remind me, you can no longer see, sip, taste, savor, nor honor with song this starless June diminuendo. I can and do. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I want to say that the readers tonight were absolutely incredible, and I think the poems were amazing by all of you. And just a reminder, you can get the anthology at Grolier Poetry Bookshop. And if you can't go into the shop, you can call them and order it, or you can do it online through their bookshop. So I hope that you will do that. Listening to those poems tonight is just wonderful. That will be it for this evening. So let's give the readers one more round of applause.